consider. So, okay. So today we're going to be discussing the festival called Panihati Chidadahi Utsav. It can also be called the Festival of Punishment. And we're going to be discussing what we can take away from the pastime. Now, why it's called the Festival of Punishment, I'll describe it later, so I'm sorry to keep everybody in suspense. But all these 4 words, Panihati Chidadahi Utsav, does anybody know what each word means? Maybe one each, so yes?
Panihati is the heart.
Yes. Panihati is the place, yes.
Chida.
Chida, what is chida?
Flat rice.
Yes, the flat rice, the chipped rice. What is dahi?
Yogurt.
Yogurt.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. What about utsav?
Festival.
Festival. There we go. So it can also be called the chipped rice festival of Panihati. So before we begin the discussion, let's do the invocation first. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sagana Raghunatham Nitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Sagana Ravitra Shri Shakam Vikamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Namostute Tata Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Panchakalpatarurascha Kripa Sindhurya Cha Padidana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. All right. So, before we can get into the details of the festival itself, we got to know who one of the main characters is, right? We got to know the background of somebody. Does anybody know who we can kind of consider one of the main characters? I don't want to say the main character because... Can you say it louder, Prabhu?
Raghunath Das Goswami.
Raghunath Das Goswami. There's also a mic right there, so maybe for the ones in the back. It was Raghunath Das Goswami. So, Raghunath Das Goswami, he's one of the 6 Goswamis. And these 6 Goswamis were exalted personalities who were dedicated to Mahaprabhu's and his mission. So it is described in the bhajan Sri Sad Goswami Ashtakam by Srinivasacharya that these 6 Goswamis were engaged in chanting the holy names of the Lord and bowing down in a secluded measurement. In this way, they utilized their valuable lives, and in executing these devotional activities, they conquered over eating and sleeping, and were always meek and humble, enchanted by remembering the transcendental qualities of the Lord. I think that one is verse 6 or 5, one of the two. So for Raghunath Das Goswami, Srila Prabhupada says in the purport of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila 10:100, we have many things to learn about bhajan, or worship of the Lord, by following the footsteps of Raghunath Das Goswami. So let's start by going in a little bit of the early life of Raghunath Das Goswami. So does anybody know the year he was born? Approximately?
1400s.
1400s, that's a good guess. We've narrowed it down a little bit. I'll give you a hint, it's in the later half of the 1400s.
1486.
1486, higher.
1499.
Lower. A little bit lower. Kind of in the middle of those two.
1497.
Higher.
1417?
Higher.
1470.
No, so it's around between 1480 and 1490.
Ah, okay.
1487.
1484?
You guys are trying, but it's 1494, approximately. Yes. So he was born in the year 1494 in the town of Saptagram in the Hooghly district of West Bengal. And he was his father Govardhan's only child. And this family of his was devoted to Advaita Acharya. And when Raghunath Das was a young child, he got the association of Haridas Thakur, who is one of Mahaprabhu's exalted associates. He first got the association of Mahaprabhu by the mercy of Haridas Thakur when the Lord stayed at the house of Advaita Acharya. So the Lord gave the young boy some remnants from his plate. And from that moment on, man, Raghunath Das Goswami caught the bhakti bug. He couldn't stop. But does anybody know anything else significant about Raghunath Das Goswami's family?
He was a
Yes, what, can you pass the mic and,
What is that example? Please
Money.
It's the same, man.
What's the name?
He came from a rich family.
yes, they had a lot of money. This is actually not, this is like only a small fortune of the amount of money they had. It's described that his uncle and father, his uncle was named Hiranya and his father was named Govardhan. They were wealthy landlords. They lived almost like kings. They had a huge, opulent riverside palace with boats along the riverside. Like there's some places in Orlando where you see, you know, it's got almost like 8,000 square feet, boat, it's on a lake. Imagine that, but bigger and more boats. So their annual income was said to be 500,000 gold coins. So, and that was in those days. And I was listening to a class and they were saying that, he was saying that each gold coin was about $250 in today's money. So their annual income is about $125 million. So that's a lot of money. And because his uncle, he didn't have any sons. So, what does that mean? Yes, Raghunath Das was the only heir, and he would inherit all of his family's wealth, all the boats, all the opulent palaces, the storage room full of gold coins, everything. Now, in the modern world, when somebody, maybe they win the lottery or they inherit a large sum of money, what is the first thing they do?
Go on cruise.
Okay, a cruise. You would go on a cruise. What else would you do? Hmm? Yeah? Yeah? What else? Shopping? Shopping spree. I like your energy. I like it. But what would you go shopping for, Nishi? If you had so much money, what would you buy?
We would buy Christmas things what he loves.
Nice. Unfortunately, in the modern world, that's not what people buy. They go and spend money. Luxury cars. They get Lamborghini, Porsche, all these cars. They get a big house. They go to the most expensive Michelin star restaurant and they buy all this food and they get everything just to fulfill all their desires. And you can see that troubles people, that after some time they've run out of money and now they're back to where they started. But Raghunath had no interest in any of this money. He just wanted to run away and go to Puri. He wanted to be with Mahaprabhu. So this troubled his family, it's the only heir. And so they guarded Raghunath to prevent him from escaping. It said that they kept 5 watchmen, 4 servants seated in comforts, and then they had 2 brahmanas to cook for him. So 11 people in total were watching him to make sure he didn't try to break away and go to Puri and become a mendicant. They didn't want that. Which is funny because actually his family was very favorable to Lord Chaitanya. I mean, they met with associates like Haridas Thakur, Vaitacharya through his family priest. But they didn't want their only heir running away and becoming a mendicant. That was the big issue. So Raghunath still, he made attempts to break free from these bondages to go to Puri. But each time the guards would catch him before he got there and just bring him back. So it is described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita one day when Raghunath escaped. He ran into trouble with the Muslim government. Because what had happened was his uncle had made a deal with the government to collect taxes, right? And so 3/4 of the taxes would go to the government and 1/4 would go to the family. Now, his uncle was keeping a little bit extra on the side, so only about 60% was going to the government instead of 75. A little bit of tax evasion back in the day. So the tax collector went to arrest his uncle, but the uncle was not there. He knew the government was after him because of this, so they had gone and fled, and all that was left was Raghunath. And so they arrested Raghunath, and the Chaudhary, who was the tax collector, he would threaten him. He's trying to get Raghunath. Where's your uncle? Where's your uncle? Come on, I'll beat you if you don't tell me. And Raghunath was like, don't worry, you guys are brothers, you know, sometimes brothers fight, sometimes they get along. I'm sure you guys will work this out. But he said it in such a sweet voice, such a sweet way, that the Chaudhary started crying. And he's just like, wow, your words, they would just move them to tears. And the tax collector released him and they figured out their problems. So one day the Lord came back to the area and Raghunath pleaded with his father, please, please, can I go see Mahaprabhu? His father did let him at this time because, you know, he was pretty close by. He couldn't run off to Puri if Mahaprabhu was right there. And so Raghunath let him know of the situation. I want to be with you, my lord, but I'm stuck here by my family. Does anybody know what Mahaprabhu said? You nodded, Keshav. What did Mahaprabhu say?
I don't remember the exact verse, but he said, paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact verse, but he said that don't worry about trying to run away right now. Enjoy this world as it befits you, and do not get too attached to it, and don't be too detached either. Mm-hmm. In due time, you'll get an opportunity, which all your desires will be fulfilled.
Yes. So he told him, go back to your father's house, live this worldly life, but with detachment, internally being fixed on Krishna. So there's one verse that says in the 16th chapter of Madhya Lila, you should not make yourself a show-bottle devotee and become a false renunciate. For the time being, enjoy the material world in a befitting way and do not become attached to it. So, Raghunath went back and he actually worked for the family business for some time. And his father wanted to make sure, okay, he's actually kind of turning around, but we want to make sure he kind of stays in this thing. So they found a nice girl, very pretty, and they got married. Very nice, right? Raghunath didn't care for just anything, you know. He was, you know, totally detached, like, all right, fine, I guess. But after some time, the pangs of the separation from the Lord were just too strong, and he started going and trying to escape again, only for the guards to bring him back. So his parents, they were kind of like seeing why. They were like saying things like, you know, he has so many opulences like Indra. He has the wealth of Indra, but all this could not tie him down. We can't even keep this boy home by binding him with ropes. How can we keep him? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he has fully bestowed his mercy on him. So, but they still didn't let their son leave. They're like, we understand this, but you're staying. You know, you gotta inherit the fortune. You know, that's everybody's dream, right? Inherit a big fortune, but not Raghunath. So Raghunath hatched a plan to go meet Lord Nityananda. So, we talked a little bit about detachment. So, what is detachment, and why was detachment so important for Raghunath Das Goswami, and for the matter, all of us? So, detachment doesn't mean that, give up everything, go to the forest back there with the wetlands, the alligators, and just live our life. Raghunath Das Goswami, he had all this wealth, a beautiful wife, but he was detached. If we artificially give up everything as I described before, our mind just becomes more attached to what we give up. So like, for example, if you tell a kid, you can't eat that chocolate cake on the table, what are they going to want to do? Eat the chocolate cake. On the table. It was like when I was a kid, I wanted to go on the roof and clean the roof. This seems like a really strange thing for a child to want to do, to clean the roof, but it was like, man, that's the chore I want to do instead of doing dishes. But my parents told me, no, it's too dangerous, you can't go on the roof. So do you know what that made me want to do? Go on the roof more. I don't even know. It's like, maybe that's some psychological trick you can use with children. Oh no, you can't do the dishes. Try it out maybe? I don't know, I don't have any children. But when we become attached to so many things, it affects our spiritual life, right? This Krishna conscious process is not difficult. It's a pretty simple process. Chant, be happy, feast. Sounds like a good plan. But it can be difficult for those who struggle with attachment. So, to illustrate this story, I want to tell a story of a guru and a disciple. Nobody in particular. They were walking through the forest, but the disciple, he was constantly disturbed by his restless mind, going here and there. So, the disciple asked the guru, how can we calm this mind? Why do most people have this restless mind? The guru said, I will tell you a story. The story is as follows. An elephant, he was picking leaves off a tree to eat. And it could be a mosquito, but in this case it was a fly. The small fly came and started buzzing near the elephant's ear. And the elephant waved the fly away, but the fly came back, and the elephant swatted him away. But this would keep going back and forth for some time. And eventually the elephant just straight up asked the fly, why must you be so restless? Why must you go here and there? Why can't you just sit over there and have a good time? So the fly said, I go wherever I see, hear, smell. I'm just going in every direction. What's your secret to staying so calm? And the elephant told the fly, my senses do not dictate where I go. I become immersed in whatever I'm doing. For example, I was eating the leaves, and that's all I was doing. I was just sitting and eating the leaves. So suddenly, a light bulb went off in the disciple's head. Oh, now I get it. If I let the senses control me, then my mind is constantly restless, because the senses are going here and there, trying to please. But if I take control, focus on one thing, my mind will be calm. The guru smiled and said, yes, the mind is restless and goes wherever the attention is. Control your attention, and you control the mind. Now, if you're detached, or I guess we can say if you are attached, you got so many things around you. Your mind's just going here, 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 here. All these attentions, it's going to different attentions. But detachment, you're not really, the senses don't run. You're just, these are there, and I can use them in the service of the Lord. So, we use whatever we acquire in the service of the Lord. And that's what Raghunath Das Goswami did. So, we know who the main character is, or one of the main characters. Let's learn about more where the pastime took place. So here, this is from Google Earth, and I put pins on the locations of Mayapur, Panihati, and Puri, just so you can see. Panihati is quite far from Puri, right? I mean, it doesn't seem like that, but Panihati is 2 hours south of Mayapur. So take that distance, do some math, it's quite far. Especially if you're walking. I think it's like 2 hours by car. So it's a little bit far. So Panihati, it was historically a primary trading route because it's situated on the banks of Ganges. So originally, it was a center for Buddhists. But during the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Buddhists were kind of kicked out. They moved to other places in the world. And it transformed to be predominantly Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So in this month of June, where we are at, Panihati gets very, very hot. It said, I was reading, it was 45 to 50 degrees Celsius, which is about 115 to 122 degrees, no, 45 to 50 degrees Celsius, 115 to 122 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you think Florida's hot, it's really hot over there, especially right now. Here's just some various texts and how the village of Panihati is described. So can I have volunteers to read each quote? Krishna Prema, you could start with the first quote.
Voluntold to read. The village of Panihati is situated on the banks of the Ganges near Kalaha. Purport, Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 16203.
Can I have a second person read? Yes, Parvati?
On the East Bengal Railway line beginning from the Silta station in Calcutta, there is a station named Solapura, which is not very far from Calcutta. Within 1 mile of this station, toward the western side of the Ganges, is a village known as Panihati, in which the residential quarters of Raghava Pandita still exist. Anuvasya Vaishula Vaksiddhanta Saraswati Thakur.
And one more volunteer to read the last quote. Yes, Forrest.
Panihati is the place where Gaurani Thai would assemble for Sankirtana performance. Letter to Balavanta 10/20/1974.
Panihati seems like a nice place, right? This is a picture, I think, from like today because you can see the cars in the back. Although it kind of disturbs the mood a little bit, but you can kind of see how it looks like. I couldn't find a nicer picture, so I apologize to everybody.
No photographs from the 1400s?
No, sorry. I tried. I really did try.
Oil pastel.
You know I don't have that talent, Prabhu. I do not have the artistic talent. So now we've primed our mind and we learned about the background. So it's time to go to the actual pastime. Now for this, I actually want to go to the Chaitanya Charitamrita itself. And I think we can have, I know it was a little bit hard to get people to read, but I want a few more people to read. And I think we can do like 5 verses each, and then when purports pop up, there's only a couple, so don't worry. We can read those too. So let me go to, okay. Is this large enough for everyone? Or do I need to make it bigger? One more? So we're going to start from text 43, and you're going to read till 48.
In the village of Panihati, Raghunath Das obtained an interview with Nityananda Prabhu, who was accompanied by many Kirtana performers, servants, and others. Sitting on a rock under a tree on the bank of Ganges, Lord Nityananda seemed as effulgent as hundreds of thousands of rising suns. Many devotees sat on the ground surrounding him. Seeing the influence of Nityananda Prabhu, Raghunath Das was astonished. Raghunath Das offered his obeisances by falling prostrate at a distant place, and the servant of Nityananda Prabhu pointed out, "There is Raghunath Das offering you obeisances." Hearing this, Lord Nityananda Prabhu said, "You are a thief. Now you have come to see me. Come here, today I shall punish you."
All right, pass the mic on to the next.
The Lord called him, but Raghunath Das did not go near the Lord. Then the Lord forcibly caught him and placed his lotus feet upon Raghunath Das's head. Lord Nityananda was by nature very merciful and funny. Being merciful, he spoke to Raghunath Das as follows. You are just like a thief, for instead of coming near, you stay away at a distant place. Now that I have captured you, I shall punish you. Make a festival and feed all my associates yogurt and chipped rice. Hearing this, Raghunath Das was greatly pleased.
One more.
Raghunath Das immediately sent his own men to the village to purchase all kinds of eatables and bring them back.
Raghunath Das bought chipped rice, yogurt, milk, sweetmeats, sugar, bananas, and other eatables and placed them all around. As soon as they heard that a festival was going to be held, all kinds of brahmanas and other gentlemen began to arrive. Thus, there were innumerable people. Seeing the crowd increasing, Raghunath Das arranged to get more eatables from other villages. He also brought 200 to 400 large round earthen pots. He also obtained 5 or 7 especially large earthen pots, and in these pots a brahmana began soaking chip rice for the satisfaction of Lord Nityananda. In one place, chip rice was soaked in hot milk in each of the large pots. Then half of the rice was mixed with yogurt, sugar, and bananas.
How do you follow the recipe?
I don't know the exact recipe, I will say, but I think we are.
The other half is mixed with condensed milk and a special type of banana known as kampakala. Then sugar, clarified butter, and camphor were added.
I don't think we have camphor, but
After Nityananda Prabhu had changed his cloth for a new one and sat on a raised platform, the Brahmana brought before him the 7 huge pots. On that platform, all the most important associates of Sri Nitya Prabhu, as well as other important men, sat down in a circle around the Lord. Among them were Ramadasa, Sundarananda, Gadadhara Dasa, Murari, Kamalakara, Sadasiva, and Puradara. Dhanajanya, Jagadisha, Parameshvara Dasa, Mahesha, Gauradasa, and Hoda Krishna Dasa were also there.
alright, next.
Similarly, Uttaraj, Datta Thakur, and many other personal associates of the Lord sat on the raised platform with Nityanand Prabhu. No one could count them all. The devotees mentioned herein are described by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur in his Anubhasya. For further information, one may consult the following references in Adi Leela: Ramadas, chapter 10, text 116 to 118, and chapter 11, text 1316, Sundaranand, 1123, Gadadhar Das 1053, 1113 to 15, and 1117 Murari. The Murari mentioned herein is different from Murari Gupta. His full name is Murari Chaitanya Das, and he is a personal associate of Nityanand Prabhu. Thus one should consult chapter 11, text 20, Kamal Kara 1124, Sadasiva 1138, Purandara 1128, Dhananjaya 1131, Jagadish 1130, Parmeshwara 1129, Mahesha 1132, Gauri Dasa 1126, Hoda Krishna Dasa 1147, Uddharana Datta Thakur 1141.
So we're all going to go to these verses afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah!
All of them.
All of them. No, keep going.
Hearing about the festival, all kind of learned scholars, brahmanas and priests went there. Lord Nityananda Prabhu honored them and made them sit on the raised platform with them. Everyone was offered 2 earthen pots. In one was put chipped rice with condensed milk, and in another chipped rice with yogurt.
Okay, we can move on to the next.
All the other people sat in groups around the platform. No one could count how many people there were. Each and every one of them was supplied 2 earthen pots, one with chipped rice soaked in yogurt and the other of chipped rice soaked in condensed milk. Some of the brahmanas, not having gotten a place on the platform, went to the bank of the Ganges with their 2 earthen pots and soaked their chipped rice there. Others, who could not get a place even on the bank of the Ganges, got down into the water and began eating their 2 types of chipped rice. Thus, some sat on the platform, some at the base of the platform, and some on the bank of the Ganges, and they were all supplied 2 pots each by the 20 men who distributed the food.
Okay, we can go to the next reader.
At that time, Raghava Pandit arrived there. Seeing the situation, he began to laugh in great surprise. He brought many kinds of food cooked in ghee and offered to the Lord. This prasadam, the first placed before Lord Nityananda and then distributed among the devotees. Raghava Pandit said to Lord Nityananda, "For you, sir, I have already offered food to the deity, but you are engaged in a festival here, and so the food is lying there untouched." Lord Nityananda replied, "Let me eat all this food here during the day, and I shall eat at your home at night." I belong to a community of cowherd boys, and therefore I generally have many cowherd associated with me. I am happy when we eat together in the picnic like this by the sandy bank of the river.
Lord Nityananda made Raghava Pandita sit down and had 2 pots delivered to him also. There were 2 kinds of chipped rice soaked in them. When chipped rice had been served to everyone, Lord Nityananda Prabhu in meditation brought Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arrived, Lord Nityananda Prabhu stood up. They then saw how the others were enjoying the chipped rice with yogurt and condensed milk. From each and every pot, Lord Nityananda Prabhu took 1 morsel of chipped rice and pushed it into the mouth of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a joke. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, also smiling, took a morsel of food, pushed it into the mouth of Nityananda and laughed as he made Lord Nityananda eat.
Alright, next reader.
In this way, Lord Nityananda was walking through all the groups of leaders, and all the Vaishnavas standing there were seeing the fun. No one could understand what Nityananda Prabhu was doing as he walked about. Some, however, who were very fortunate, could see that Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was also present. Then Nityananda Prabhu smiled and sat down. On his right side, he had 4 pots of chipped rice that had not been made from boiled paddy. Lord Nityananda offered Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu a place and had him sit down. Then together the 2 brothers began eating chipped rice. Seeing Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu eating with him, Lord Nityananda Prabhu became very happy and exhibited varieties of ecstatic love.
Alright, we can move to the next reader.
Lord Nityananda Prabhu ordered, "All of you eat," chanting the holy name of Hari. Immediately the holy names Hari, 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 Hari sounded filling the entire universe. When all the Vaishnavas were chanting the holy names Hari, Hari, and eating, they remembered how Krishna and Balaram ate with their companions, the cowherd boys, on the bank of the Yamuna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda Prabhu are extremely merciful and liberal. It was Raghunath Das's good fortune that they accepted all these dealings. Who can understand the influence and mercy of Lord Nityananda Prabhu? He is so powerful that he induced Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to come eat chipped rice on the bank of the Ganges. All the confidential devotees who were cowherd boys, headed by Sri Ramadasa, were absorbed in ecstatic love. They thought the bank of the Ganges to be the bank of the Yamuna.
Okay, we can go to the next.
When the shopkeepers of many other villages heard about the festival, they arrived there to sell chipped rice, yogurt, sweetmeats, and bananas. As they came, bringing all kinds of food, Raghunath Das purchased it all. He gave them the price for their goods and later fed them the very same food. Anyone who came to see how these funny things were going on was also fed chipped rice, yogurt, and bananas. After Lord Nityananda Prabhu finished eating, he washed his hands and mouth and gave Raghunath Das the food remaining in the 4 pots. There was food remaining in the 3 other big pots of Lord Nityananda, and a Brahmana distributed it to all the devotees, giving a morsel to each.
All right, one last reader.
Then Brahmana brought a flower garland, placed the garland on Nityananda Prabhu's neck, and smeared the sandal pulp all over his body. When a servant brought betel nuts and offered them to Lord Nityananda, the Lord smiled and chewed them. With his own hands, Lord Nityananda Prabhu distributed all the devotees whatever flower, garlands, sandal, pulp, and betel nuts remained. After receiving the remnants of food left by Lord Nityananda Prabhu, Raghunatha Dasa, who was greatly happy, ate some and distributed the rest among his own associates. Thus I have described the pastimes of Lord Nityananda Prabhu in regulations to the celebrated festival of chipped rice and yogurt.
Panihati Chidada Utsava Ki Jai. So, briefly, what are some takeaways that we got from this reading and the words of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami? Just a couple, just for time's sake. Come on, not everybody all at once, come on. Keshav, yes.
I find it really interesting how, in Raghunath Das's example, you see a really good example of effective service to the devotees and service according to one's capacity. Usually we hear that one should serve according to their capacity, and everybody takes that to mean don't do too much. And yet, when we see Raghunath Das Goswami as a multi-millionaire, first of all, it's not just that he's throwing around his money. Like you said, it's very effective service for the times. Chirdahi is like a very, specifically yogurt and chipped rice is a very cooling dish. And in this type of heat, he's finding the best way he can serve the devotees. He doesn't hesitate to serve anybody. And his, conscientiousness in his service, he makes sure every single person gets prasadam. Even if there's not space for them to sit down, they can sit in the Ganges and make sure they can have a pot of prasadam. In fact, even if the shopkeepers come, it's like, okay, here, let me buy out your entire stock. So the entire market's empty. Then you also come and take your own stock of prasadam. So he's making sure that everybody gets served in the perfect way.
Yes. I like that you picked up on the point of it was hot, so yogurt was a very good way to cool the devotees. I saw your hand up, Raja Govinda.
A lot of recipes.
A lot of recipes.
Just by reading this pastime, you have everything you need to throw your own panihati.
And don't worry guys, we do have a lot of recipes of chipped rice. Yes, Prabhu in the back.
The Lord's so-called punishment is also mercy.
Jai.
Not only mercy for Raghunath Das Goswami, but mercy for all the assembled Vaishnavas.
And actually, that's my next point. I'm glad you mentioned that. But Mohan?
So, Raghunath Das Goswami tried many times to be with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and he wanted to leave his home. But as he also mentioned that he was saying that when he went to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said that don't show Markat Vairagya, which means that don't foolishly and try to show that you are a devotee by giving everything. Because the thing is, he hadn't got the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu. But as soon as he saw Nityananda Prabhu and he paid obeisances, and that's why he actually mentions that he is a thief, not because he wanted to steal Chaitanya Mahaprabhu without going through Nityananda Prabhu. Which means that we cannot, obviously we cannot, if he cannot. So
Yes.
that's why Nityananda Prabhu is the start and how mercy personification Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. So that's what I.
Yes. Thank you. So these are all very good takeaways, and some I will be describing further. So glad you mentioned. So to talk to Prabhu's point, this is also called the Festival of Punishment. Now, in the modern era, punishment is very negative. It's actually always negative. It's described in the in the beginning of the 15th chapter, that the material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. So things that may be good in the spiritual world can be bad here. So, for example, if I place my foot on you, you're gonna be a little bit offended, right? I probably didn't wash my feet enough, or, either that or, somebody's kicking you. That's usually why someone's foot is on you. And, it's not really good if someone puts your foot on you. But in this particular context, the punishment of receiving Nityananda's feet on Raghunath's head and having to make food for all of these devotees was not a punishment for Raghunath, even though for us, oh my gosh, I have to make food here for all the devotees. Imagine if I told you, oh, you're late for kirtan, now you gotta go in the kitchen and make food for everyone. You might go, oh. Actually, I have something to go to, Hare Krishna, But for him, it wasn't a punishment. He was actually very excited. So it was not a punishment for kind of two reasons. One reason, the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda are so merciful. In Nitai Pada Kamala, it is said, Nitai Pada Kamala, Koti Chanda Sushitala, which means the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda are cooling like a million moons. There are many markings on his lotus feet. I don't know if you can see in the picture, it's kind of faded, but there are many markings. And a couple of them, one of them, Bo, means those who take shelter of Nitai's lotus feet will be perpetually free from all worries and difficulties. Another one, which is the flag, means for the devotees meditating on his lotus feet, they give security and safe protection from all sorts of fear. So very nice. So when Raghunath received the Lord's feet on his head, it was actually a great blessing. Like Mohan mentioned, he was trying to go to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu directly, but he didn't have that mercy of Nityananda Prabhu. And now, with that motion, he had the blessings. It said, if you want to approach Krishna, you have to approach Radharani. But in order to approach Radharani, you have to go through Mahaprabhu. But in order to get to Mahaprabhu, you have to go through Nityananda. But how do we get to Nityananda? Jagan Madai, yeah. That's one that I read, but that's not the one I'm thinking of. Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Through Srila Prabhupada, he's the representative of Nityananda Prabhu. And everything that you can achieve through the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu can be achieved by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. So, the second reason is, even though he had to feed thousands, I mean, people were in the water. It was so packed. He had great pleasure, His father always giving him money. Here, have just 4,000 rupees. And he was having all these servants. And now here was a practical way to use his money. But Nityananda, it said he was very funny, right? He's in a humorous mood. You'd think somebody so rich can make the most opulent prasadam. But he told him, make chip rice, which is kind of like a poor man's food. Nityananda Prabhu is very funny. So, It'd be like if just Jeff Bezos or some other really rich man, there's a lot of rich people these days, and he walked into the temple and he told one of us, like Dwight Prue, I'm in a generous mood. What would you like me to donate? Instead of donating like money for the temple or, I don't know. He's just like, just a bag of rice would be fine,
We have the list outside.
Yeah. You'd be like, hey, there's a list outside. You can get some of that. But, I mean, in this case, it's sort of a punishment. You have to make all this food for the devotees, but you can only use chipped rice. I mean, he got around it. He got, what did he say, banana, condensed milk, yogurt. He got made ways around it to make all different sorts of flavors, but it's still chipped rice. So we can see from this pastime that he would make pots, but more and more people kept coming, so he would make more and more chitadahi. People were even standing in the Ganges, like I mentioned, because there was no more room on land. So briefly, I want to talk about some of my takeaways from Panihati pastime. So I just touched on the point that this was a festival of punishment. But the second one was Yukta Vairagya. What is Yukta Vairagya?
The opposite of showboating.
The opposite of showboating?
Showbottle pronunciation.
Oh, yes. So, using everything you had in the service of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada would tell the story of this famous monk in India. And he was supposedly so renounced that anytime, here, have some money, his hand would just curl up and he would turn away. He was so renounced. But Srila Prabhupada said, but if anyone offers us money, we will immediately take it and use it in Krishna's service. So that's the difference. That's Yukta Vairagya. Raghunath Das Goswami, he used his wealth that his father gave him to serve the devotees at the request of Nityananda. So similarly, we can use what we have, including our time. It's not just monetary things. They say time is money, so to serve our community here. So third takeaway, importance of caring for devotees. Sadhu Sangha, it's very important in our practice. And we can uplift and support each other in our Krishna conscious journey. So even when people were coming to take the chipped rice, Raghunath Das was making that point. Every single devotee there was fed. He was taking care of everyone. He's not like, nope, you're late by 2 minutes, no chipped rice for you. So the last point, and actually it's going to be one I'm elaborating on quite a bit today, the importance of offering obeisances properly. In the Naradiya Purana, it is said, the purificatory rites performed during 10 horse sacrifices cannot even equal 1 pranam offered to Krishna. A person who performs 10 horse sacrifices takes birth again. The person offering pranams to Krishna does not take birth again. So that's very nice, very comforting. So I need a volunteer. Nishi, do you want to volunteer? Can you show us how do you offer obeisances? You can come up front and offer obeisances to the Jagai Nataraj. Maybe? Just in case anybody doesn't know what offering obeisances is. Haribo! You get another Krishna point. So, it's said that Raghunath Das Goswami himself, when he was living in Vrindavan, he would offer obeisances a minimum of 1,000 times a day to the Lord and 2,000 times every day to the devotees of the Lord. But like many repetitive motions, offering obeisances, it can become sort of a ritualistic thing, kind of something, we do out of habit instead of understanding the purpose of offering obeisances. Especially for those of us, like myself, who grew up as devotees. And offering obeisances is kind of just something your parents told you to do. When you enter the temple, make sure, offer obeisances. And even worse, we can become lazy with our obeisances. When I was traveling on youth bus tours, we were told not to do springboard obeisances, which is basically just right up and down. I know it takes much more time to say the pranam mantras fully and properly and put everything on the ground, but if you're doing those springboard obeisances, there's no way you're saying Namo Shivaya. No, there's no way. So, there's a Srila Prabhupada pastime. Srila Prabhupada, he was receiving his morning massage. And his morning massage would take about an hour and a half each day. And during this time, Srila Prabhupada's Sanskrit editor would come and ask him questions. The first time the Sanskrit editor entered the room, he would properly offer obeisances, and he would ask his question, then leave. The next few times, he knelt quickly, momentarily touched his head, and then, asked the question and then leave. Shishinitai Gornataraj ki jai. So, Srila Prabhupada said, "What is this hatchet?" And he was chastising him. "You pay your obeisances. This hatchet is not good." Does anyone know what a hatchet is? It's like an axe, kind of, right? And Shrutikirti Prabhu was telling this pastime. He was saying, "I was never sure what Prabhupada meant by the word hatchet. I know the part of the meaning was abrupt, quick hacking motion one associates with that particular tool. Now I see another meaning to the word. Our devotional creeper is very fragile. While rendering personal service to the spiritual master, we can easily damage our devotional creeper by carelessly swinging our hatchet-like egos. To be Krishna conscious means we must be conscious of our activities at all times and never take shortcuts when it comes to respecting our guru." So I want to get into why we offer obeisances, what are the benefits of offering obeisances, and how this is relevant in relation to the pastime specifically. So 3 aspects: humility, respect, and devotional service. So offering obeisances allows us to develop this mood of humility. So you can see in the picture here, you have 2 men. This guy on the left, look at me, yeah, he's got his head held high. And then you got the guy in the back, he's got his head bent down. Which one of these guys is humble? Blue shirt? Good job, guys. You all get a Krishna point today. He's not drawing attention to himself, right? And thinking of himself in a great way. There's another Srila Prabhupada pastime. One time a disciple thought he would show Srila Prabhupada how humble he was, right? So Srila Prabhupada would recognize him for his humility. So he wrote Srila Prabhupada a letter, and he signed it out as the most fallen. And in order to teach him humility, Srila Prabhupada, he wrote back, "You're not the most anything, that you're just simply insignificant," right? So the disciple was thinking, "Oh, I'm humble," but actually he was like, "Look at me, I'm so humble," right? And that's not really humility. So in my field, I work as an engineer in my day-to-day life, and it's kind of funny because in my field, it's so encouraged to be proud of your achievements, be proud of what you're doing. You're putting your name on something. You should, sing it from the top of the hill. Look at what I've done. And it's kind of like hard at me for work sometimes because I'm being pulled in one way, but I'm like, I gotta be humble. So it's very difficult. And I was in a meeting last week, and all my coworkers are trying to praise me, be like, "Oh, look at what you've done," and I'm just like, it was all a collaborative effort, guys, and I could have only done it without your guidance, some nice things like that. And they're just like, what? No! We gotta be proud of it. I was like, whatever, I just gave up at that point. Humility is generally thought of, I gotta be inferior. I'm on the bottom. So when we're offering obeisances, where are we? Are we up here or are we down here? We're basically the lowest we can go, right? We are offering our ego to Krishna when we are offering obeisances. Raghunath Das Goswami, even with his wealth, he was extremely humble. He was not saying, "Look how renounced I am, even with all the money I have." He wasn't getting mad at Nityananda. "Why did you go and put your foot on my head and humiliate me in front of all these people?" He was only thinking of serving the devotees and carrying out the orders of Nityananda Prabhu. Humility is not thinking less of oneself, but thinking of oneself less. So, this is a quote from the purport of Bhagavad Gita 13:8-12. Humility means that one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. The material conception of life makes us very eager to receive honor from others. But from the point of view of a man in perfect knowledge, who knows that he is not this body, anything, honor or dishonor, pertaining to this body is useless. One should not be hankering after this material deception. So as we discussed, in the material world, we're so concerned, look at me, see what good things I've done. But we as devotees should be focused on doing the service, whether we receive honor or not. So the second point I want to talk about is respect. Here in these images, you can see different ways of offering respect, you know. You can fold your hands like this little girl here. You can shake your hand like we do in the Western Buddhism. Nice to meet you, sir. Or you can do a combination of things like shaking your head, dipping your head in acknowledgement, any different things that we do. In the Vaishnava culture, the way of showing respect is offering obeisances, like all the disciples of Srila Prabhupada are doing here. And offering obeisances is not just a physical act, but it's done with our words as well. For example, you know, most prayers start with, I offer my respectful obeisances. So, for example, the prayers we said at the beginning of class, they're offering obeisances to different personalities. Can we name them all in order? What's the first prayer about? Spiritual Master. What's the second prayer about? The Goswamis. Third prayer? Krishna. Fourth prayer? Radharani. Fifth prayer? Vaishnavas. Sixth prayer? The Panchatattva, and then it's the Hare Krishna mantra. So all these, before we begin class, we're offering our respectful obeisances to all these different personalities. Or, you know, when we're sharing a message, we start with, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. By starting something with offering obeisances, we are paying respects to those who are more knowledgeable than us for giving us what we need to perform our devotional service. So how do we physically, though, offer obeisances in a proper and respectful way? There's, you know, I mean, you could do the springboard obeisances if you really want, but there's a proper way to do it. You place your head and both hands on the floor, like the devotees in the picture are doing. It's also said, when you're offering obeisances to the Lord, for example, you put your left side towards the deity because that is considered more auspicious. Or Srila Prabhupada, it's the same thing. And while you're offering obeisances, are you silent? Just no. Loudly. Yes. So you're saying the pranam mantra of Srila Prabhupada, and if you're initiated, you also say the pranam mantra of your guru. Then you Jai Shri Krishna, Hare Krishna. All of these should be said out loud, like Dwai Prabhu said, because it's actually an offense to offer prayer silently to the Guru and Krishna. And only after these are completed do you get up. This should be done every time you enter the temple and when the curtains open. Now, of course, if kirtan is going on and you're the one playing mridanga, you shouldn't, give me 1 second, guys, and offer your obeisances. But you should still offer obeisances in your mind, because that is a respectful thing to do. Without understanding these reasons that offering obeisances is for respect, you're kind of, it becomes ritualistic. Which is funny, because in the Panihati pastime, Nityananda Prabhu chastised Raghunath Das Goswami for improperly offering obeisances, but he actually did it correctly. When there's a great personality, you're not supposed to let them see you offering obeisances. And Nityananda Prabhu, though, he's funny, right? And he knows Raghunath Das Goswami's heart, so he ordered him to come forward, which is just the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu, I guess. And then offering obeisances, it's also considered an act of devotional service. You know, one of the 9 processes of devotional service is vandanam, which is prayers. But it can also be translated to offering obeisances. You know, prayers are found in most religions in the world. Christians, you know, thank you for our daily bread, and Muslims, they pray 5 times a day, you know. In the Vaishnava traditions, there are many prayers written by great personalities. And in order to make our obeisances even greater. We should study these prayers and understand how to get in that proper mood. In the Panihati pastime, Raghunath Das Goswami was looking for a service to do. And when Nityananda Prabhu called him after he did the obeisances wrong and ordered him to make chipped rice for the devotees, he did not get angry. He's like, he didn't say, Nityananda Prabhu, I'll do the service, but I actually did obeisances properly. You're the one that's wrong. No, he didn't say that. He just did the service without any complaint. That's just the mood of Raghunath Das Goswami. So, this is one of those famous verses, right? 934. In fact, this verse is so important that Krishna says this verse almost word for word twice. What's the second time he says this? What? Yes, Sunil Prabhu is correct. 1865. So here Krishna is giving the formula for going back home, back to Godhead. The first one, engage your mind in thinking of Krishna. We see the perfect example of Mother Yashoda and the residents of Vrindavan. They had what is called Ragatmika Bhakti, or spontaneous devotional service. There's also a story of Ragatmika Bhakti where a Brahmana, he was making sweet rice for the Lord entirely in his mind. There's no sweet rice on the table, but he was still making the sweet rice in his mind. And he was, adding the pot, adding the ingredients to the pot, stirring the pot, and then he touched the pot, and it was on the stove. And his finger got burned, but also got burned physically, not just in his mind, which is very interesting. Now, I don't know about you exalted devotees out there, but I'm not spending my time, always thinking of Krishna and engaging in my mind thinking of Krishna making sweet rice. I like to get to that point, but that's just not where I am. It's very difficult in the Kali Yuga, right? So we can move on to the second. Become the devotee of the Lord. This is following in the footsteps of these Ragatmika Bhaktas, which is Raganuga Bhakti, spontaneous love and bhakti. But even that is difficult. We can make an attempt and do the things to the best of our ability, but our mind, it's so restless, and we're so conditioned that we don't get this spontaneous love. Then there's the next difficulty level, which is actually the last thing Krishna says, which is worshiping the Supreme Lord, which is like sadhana bhakti, giving that feeling of relational love to Krishna. With worshiping the Lord, you find so many rules and regulations that must be followed. For example, we were here at the temple for Pandamanirjal. Just a few of us, some people, there were a lot of people at the end, but shout out to the ones that were there the entire night. I feel like we got closer together, There was the 6 of us and we're just like, I just want to go to sleep. Hare Krishna. No, I want to, at least that would be, I was struggling a little bit, but we made it through. I really appreciate all the devotees who made it out. Even if you were here for some of the night, I really appreciate everybody coming out for Pandamanirjal. Hopefully we can do it again next year and with more devotees. But we were reading from the Nectar Devotion, and it was 3 a.m. And Max, do you remember what we were reading?
We were reading all the wealth of offenses that you can commit.
There was all these offenses that you can commit by serving the Lord, which there's some like not wearing a fur blanket, which I'm glad to see everybody's participating. Nobody's worn a fur blanket today. To not speaking lies before the deity. There was like, they first listed 32 and then they're like, here's another 32. And we're like, oh my gosh. And you're reading this at 3 a.m. and you're like, oh my. It was definitely an experience. I'll say that much. Now if you try really, really, really hard, you may be able to follow all those rules. But in the Kali Yuga, we have a difficulty with cleanliness, punctuality. There's a reason there's a thing as devotee standard time, right? Sometimes you're like, it starts at 6, but in your head it's gonna start at 7. Sometimes we can struggle with simple things like that. So we go to the last one, offering obeisances to Krishna. Now, Krishna has given us a little lifeline. This is one that everybody can do. somebody can be brand new, come into the temple, and somebody can say, here's how you offer obeisances. They do that, and they get the benefit. So there's a story, it's kind of famous, where Srila Prabhupada entered a room. All the devotees offered obeisances except for one devotee. And the past time I was reading it, said it was Gargamuni. And he felt self-conscious about not offering obeisances because, you know, everybody around him is offering obeisances and he's not. So he asked Srila Prabhupada, when you come into the room, everybody is offering obeisances, but I don't feel like doing it. So I'm not going to do it because they would be artificial. I'm asking if that's all right. Prabhupada said, no, you should bow down. By bowing down, the feeling will come. So it's everything, something everybody can do, offering obeisances. I think for the sake of time, I'll skip the section of the purport. So I want to go into like what happened briefly about after the Paniyati festival. What else occurred in Raghunath Das Goswami's life? So after this, he went to meet Nityananda Prabhu to try to figure out how can I get free from this material life. So they took prasadam at the house of Raghava Pandit, and Nityananda Prabhu said this. He said to Raghunath Das, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has eaten this food. If you take his remnants, you will be released from the bondage of your family. So he was waiting and waiting, and one time, the family guru came to the house and he was like, I need a brahmana to take care of my deity. Do you think you can provide one? And Raghunath was like, yep. So when the guru left, Raghunath also went with him, and nobody questioned him. Oh yeah, you just go over to the guru. And then when he was with the guru, he was like, don't worry, I'll send a brahmana to take care of your deity, but I'm going to leave your company. And so they parted ways. Now, Raghunath Das Goswami was smart. He knew that his family would think he was going to Puri. So what did he do? He walked in the opposite way of Puri, you know. And so he stayed the night at the cowherdman's house, took a little milk, and then the next morning he started for Puri. So the guards realized he was gone, and he went to the guru's place. Where's Raghunath? He's not here. Where do you think he is? So, you know, they tried to find him, but this time they could not catch him. And Raghunath Das Goswami had finally escaped. So, you know, it took him 12 days. Thanks, Krishna, for the dramatic effect. 12 days it took him to walk to Puri. Remember that map? That's 12 days of walking. And he met with Mahaprabhu, and then his life was satisfied. And he passed many days in the company of Mahaprabhu. You know, after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left this world, he was so distraught. Remember, he had that intense feeling of separation. And he went to go to Vrindavan, and his whole intention, I'm going to go to Govardhan Hill and jump off the mountain. You know, and ending his life. But Rupa and Sanatana Goswami were in Vrindavan, and they convinced him not to do this. And it's said that his renunciation was so great, he chanted for 22 hours a day and survived on half a bowl of buttermilk. You know, even with his constant chanting, he still managed to write 3 books. Stavavali, Danakeli Chintamani, and Mukta Charita. He was the one responsible for enlarging Radhakund. And this is it's kind of a bad picture, but this is the samadhi of Raghunath Das Goswami. It's about 65 feet from the Radha Govinda temple. And it's near Raghunath Bhatta Goswami's and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's samadhi. They left actually all in the same day, just in different years. And because this was under the Muslim rule at the time, they actually cremated the bodies, which is not typical when you make a samadhi. And so if you ever go to Vrindavan, one should make an effort to visit these samadhis. Raghunath Das Goswami ki jai! One last thing, and then I'll answer your questions. To conclude the topic, I want to talk about what we do here to celebrate the Paniyati festival. So here you can see images from different temples, including this one's from Orlando here from last year with various pots. They're all beautifully painted and filled with various flavors of chipped rice. A lot of them are sweet flavors, but you guys have a treat because we also have savory flavors this year. And You guys should be excited. They're really good. In ISKCON specifically, there's a temple in Atlanta, and this temple is called New Panihati Dham. And that's what Srila Prabhupada named the temple. The devotees from Atlanta went to Panihati in the 1970s, and they kind of recreated the Panihati pastime. And this inspired them to do kind of like a little small festival, replicating the festival in Atlanta. And then in 1981, Jayapataka Maharaj, he went to Atlanta and he asked the devotees, are you guys doing this Panihati festival? I mean, they're called New Panihati Dham anyway. They're like, yes, we do a small one. We have 8 pots and that's what we do. And Jayapataka Maharaj, he explained to the devotees the importance of the Panihati festival in the Vaishnava culture. And he inspired them to expand. And this is a quote, why only offer 8 pots? Offer enough to have a grand festival, invite devotees from all over North America and feed them chipped rice. So every year since then, when they're having it this weekend, same weekend as us, they make about 500 pots of chipped rice. We don't have, I'm going to give you a spoiler alert, we don't have 500 pots this year. I'm sorry to disappoint everyone, but we do have quite a few pots. And Jayapataka Maharaj, he remained directly involved in the festival. He developed a system on how to name the pots. And, he made very fun flavors, Cajun spice, Mexican flavor, Italian flavor. Krishna Prema, what was your favorite flavor when you went?
The Italian one.
The Italian one? Then you're in luck. So he personally supervised the 40 or so devotees that were making chipped rice every year. So now many temples, including ours, celebrate this festival, but that's kind of where it started. But it started in Panihati Dham with Jayapataka Maharaj, so I just wanted to make that point. So I wanted to thank the devotees who came out and painted beautiful pots. Even if it brought them out of their comfort zone, like myself, I'm not very artistic. We have all strengths and weaknesses. It's okay. So I think last year we had about 8 pots, and I don't know how many we have this year, but it's more than 8 pots.
Somewhere around 20.
Somewhere around 20 pots. Haribol! So we more than doubled our amount of chipped rice. I want to thank the cooks who spent many hours in the kitchen preparing the chipped rice. So, dear devotees, I hope you feel inspired and encouraged by this Panihati pastime. And because we have an opportunity to get that chipped rice, and you can contribute to the effort that was made to make these chipped rice pots. These pots are extra tasty because they were made with love. That's what your mom would always say. The secret ingredient is love. But in this case, it's actually true. So I would encourage everyone to try to get at least one, because whatever you donate goes directly to the service of Shishini Thai Gaur Nataraj. And with that, does anyone have any questions? We have 9 minutes. Somebody has to have at least one question.
Well, one small thing, because you're talking about how Raghunath Das Goswami was locked up. Why did his parents allow him to go to Panihati?
Panihati wasn't very far from the village, and Mahaprabhu wasn't there. So they're like, Mahaprabhu's not there. He's not going to go and try to run away. Now, Mahaprabhu was there, but he wasn't there for everyone to see. It was only his close associates that could see him, which was very interesting. Most people were just sitting around, this chipped rice is so tasty. Raghunath Das Goswami knows how to make some good chipped rice. But for the close associates, the ones who had dedicated their lives to Krishna consciousness, they could see Mahaprabhu feeding the chipped rice. I'm going to go to see if I can find that exact... Yeah, 82. No one could understand what Nityananda Prabhu was doing as he walked about. Some, however, who were very fortunate, could see that Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was also present. So I think that's the main reason. He was like, no, Mahaprabhu's not there, so he's not going to try to run away with Mahaprabhu. But turns out Mahaprabhu was there, just only to some people. I don't know if that answers your question.
I have one small one. So you mentioned quickly that I think you said if there's a great personality, we shouldn't let them see us offer the obeisances.
Yeah.
That's a blanket statement.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Like, usually you wait for them to walk past and then you offer your obeisances. Yeah. I don't know, Dr. Wu, if you can give more context on it.
Someone else probably I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the only thing is that great personalities are still much more humble. If they see you, they may offer obeisances back to you. We don't want that. It's not the right thing to have that. I did this one time. It's so miserable after that. And also that everyone offers obeisances, it's good for them, but we don't want another someone to come. So let them pass by and we offer obeisances. So what she mentioned was that.
Yes, thank you. Questions, comments, corrections? Keshav, anything I said wrong? No? I'll take that as a win. Yes, Sunil Prabhu.
So, you mentioned towards the end that Raghunath Das Goswami was in Vrindavan.
Yes.
And with whom, whose association he was in, and what was his activities during that time?
So he was in association mostly of the six Goswamis, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had given specific instructions to the six Goswamis. I don't remember all of them. I know one of them was establishing temples and uncovering places like Radhakund and Shamakund. So Raghunath Das Goswami, like I mentioned, he was instrumental in kind of excavating and enlarging Radhakund. And he also created the steps so that devotees could bathe in Radhakund. But it was interesting. It said he was 22 hours a day he was chanting. So that's mostly what he was doing. He was chanting. I think it was said, though, that one of the Goswamis was looking at Raghunath Das Goswami, and he could see that there was different personalities protecting him. I think one time it was Srimati Radharani, another time it was a tiger. So who knows what Raghunath Das Goswami was getting up to? You know, he's just got such an elevated mood and mentality that what seems like on the surface level might have been just so much more great. But I think I don't remember which temple he established. I was trying to find, there was a class someone gave here about the six Goswamis and the details of their life. I couldn't find my notes on it though. But he did establish one temple. I don't know if anybody knows the name of the temple he established. I'll do my research and I'll figure it out.
Who was his spiritual master?
Sanatana
Goswami? I'm just thinking, because I remember Sanatana Goswami only saved him from like that past time you mentioned, tiger and the other one.
Yeah, Rupa and Sanatan were the ones who saved him from ending his lone life and saying, you have much more to do in this life. But I don't know specifically who his guru was.
It's a Jiva Mandir.
Hmm.
So, specifically in terms of who the spiritual master is, the Shiksha, the list that's given in Gita is a Shiksha Parampara. So all six Goswamis of Vrindavan are considered to be Shiksha disciples of Mahaprabhu because they were all given specific instruction on tattva, on philosophy, on just Mahaprabhu's mood through which they fulfill their orders and empowerment. That being said, like you said, they were all established to do certain services in Vrindavan. And I believe Rupa and Sanatan were two of the first the Goswamis to have settled in Vrindavan. So many of them saw them as senior to them. I guess, in general, Vaishnava etiquette is a very subjective thing. Because while some people might consider these to be contemporaries, every Vaishnava considers others to be senior, superior to them. Sanatana Goswami thought his brother Rupa to be his guru because he received more mercy from Mahaprabhu. And yet Rupa Goswami, whenever he writes his poetry, he always has a signature in the end, offering obeisances to Sanatana. Some people can say it's offering obeisances to Sanatana, the eternal Lord, like a name of Krishna. Other people will say it's a second meaning is he's offering obeisances to his elder brother as his guru. So each of them saw each other as a guru in some way or the other because of the way that they work together. But in another way, they're all receiving mercy from Mahaprabhu. So Mahaprabhu's like their Shiksha guru.
Maybe this is wrong. Yadunandan Acharya.
Yadunandan Acharya is his guru from his family guru. From Hiranya Majumdar, Govinda Majumdar. Yadunandan Acharya was their family guru, who was the associate of Advaita Acharya and Haridas Thakur. And so he was the reason why he was able to get away from. Basically, anytime he's gotten to see Mahaprabhu, to see Nityananda Prabhu, it's because Yadunandan Acharya was a associate of Mahaprabhu. And he would also want to go. He'd convince the uncles and his father, I'm going with him, we'll bring the guards. They're all Vaishnavas, so they're okay with him going. But he's like, okay, I'll go, but I'll make sure the security guard goes with him. He doesn't try to run away. And so then, through Krishna's arrangement, Yadunandan Acharya also was like, hey, I need somebody to help me watch my deity. And right before Mangalarti, he just got inspiration from Mahaprabhu to start running at full speed towards Vrindavan for 12 days.
Yes, thank you everyone for listening so intently and engaging in the topic. I really appreciate it. It makes such a difference when we have people engaging, and it's raining now, so you're not going anywhere. So, stay tuned for Gorti, Nishingadekars, maybe a little bit of auctioning.
Chipped rice.
Chipped rice.
Jai.
Jai. Paniyati Chita Dahi Utsav Ki. Jai. Shishikita Gonataraj Ki. Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jai. And we can now put away the mats and the chairs and get ready for Gorti. Hare Krishna.